everybody, Rexluna here, back with part 2 of Morrigan's Cowl from Dragon Age. Today we're going to do the hoodie portion of it, or I guess the hood portion of it, and hopefully the back as well. We'll see how long I go on this one. So you're going to need the same things. You're going to need your fabric, scissors, thread, sewing machine, measuring tape. The only additional thing you want this time is some sort of base pattern thing for the hood shape. Now in my case I just used a hoodie because I have like a billion of them, so I just got one of my hoodies that had a deeper hood that was closer to the size that I wanted, so when I put it on my head it kind of draped over about the way I wanted. Kind of like, see if I can show you, sort of like this, see? The only problem being that when I put my hair up, or in this case, this time, my wig, there's going to be a bun in the back, so I'm going to have to add a little bit more volume to this, which isn't all that hard. So, now that I messed my hair up, all you need to do is fold this in half, trace out the pattern, and then alter it, which I will show you shortly. So let's get started. Okay, so I prepped the pattern making portion of it because this tissue paper is super loud. So all I did was I pinned the hood part completely in half along the edges, just to make it a little bit easier. And since when I wear this hood, I'm gonna have this bun, it's gonna take up more space. I gave myself a little extra room. This is just tissue paper that I got from like CVS in a big pack, so nothing special. Now, all I need to do is trace this with the pen, just a little ballpoint pen, because I feel like it doesn't rip up the tissue paper as much. That's just my personal opinion. So, this is a little bit difficult because this has a drawstring. So, this gets to keep pretty much exactly the same shape, and the only thing I'm going to do is take this curve, make it out just a little bit more out here, and maybe give this a little bit more of a, almost an Altair Ezio kind of Assassin's Creed little curve, but just a tiny bit. But you can really make it any way you want. Okay, so the hard part is trying to get this little curve here. I mean, you can do it a flat line, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to try this little curve and see what it does, if it makes it any different. Yeah, so it's roughly about what you want. Nothing really all too difficult, really all that special or precise. That's basically the moral of Morrigan's costume, at least the way I did it, is nothing is really all that precise. So, all you need to do is just cut this pattern out with your paper scissors, keeping in mind you do want a little bit of seam allowance because it's going to be similar to how I did the cowl, where cut out a couple pieces, sew them together, all that kind of thing. So, that's the next step. Alright, so here we have the extra fabric I got for the hood, which is actually half a yard, and I folded it here into, it was already folded in half, and I folded it in half again. This is kind of a crooked piece, unfortunately. So, yes, we are going to cut 4 pieces of this hood piece because, I don't know how well this is going to show on this picture on the camera, because the mirror that I'm looking at is very far away, but there is actually a line right here, a seam on her hood. So her hood is actually made up of 2 pieces, and we're going to line it because it's just going to look better, it's going to give it some strength, and it's just going to be nicer that way. So, yes, 4 pieces. Ah, I think this one will lay flat. Whatever. So, we're going to pin this down. Ouch. And try not to poke yourself. I could probably be a little more conservative with the fabric, but I don't really care because I have a ton of scrap fabric of this already. And since this fabric is so thin, we can just cut it out all at once. Right, so I guess I should turn this so it's facing the proper direction. This is the bottom part of the hood that's going to attach to the cowl, and this is the top part. So all you need to do now is sew all the way from here to here with, I don't know, 5/8, half-inch seam, whatever you think works for you. I usually start small and go big until I get what I think works. Half-inch is my personal favorite, I guess. So just pin around this curve that go through, and then sew it together. And as I mentioned before, in my case, there's no right or wrong side to the fabric. So while I was cutting it out and while I'm pinning it together and sewing, it doesn't matter what direction the fabric's facing, but if you have a different kind of fabric, be mindful of what direction your fabric is facing. It might be better in that case for you to cut it out one at a time if it's not something you're used to. Once or twice I've had fabrics that have had a right and wrong side, and almost every single time I have totally screwed it up because it's just not something I'm very mindful of, because it's not something I encounter frequently. So just something to be careful of. There you go. Remember, do that for both. Alright. So now we have our two hood pieces, which I swear I did actually iron, but they got all wrinkled up again because that's just the nature of this fabric. And on this one I turned my brain on and actually did it with a zigzag stitch. I didn't on this one, but whatever. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip these right side out so our seams are on the inside. Sorry, might have heard my phone go off. And then we're going to line up our seams here on both pieces. And make sure you flatten out the actual seams on both sides. I don't know how well you can see that, but you know, just make sure they're flat so when you sew over them they don't get all bunched up and look all weird. Pin that down. Ow. Carefully. Then you're going to want to do that on the other end of these seams. And then you're going to want to pin around this front edge, the part that's going to be around your face, which is this stuff right here. There. Now you'll also want to pin a little bit on the bottom, but you don't want to go and sew all of it, because similar to what we did with the main part of the cowl, we're going to leave part of it open so we can flip it inside out and then hand sew the bottom. And I know for any of you who sew, this sounds a little weird, but the way I did it, and I know there's probably another way, possibly an easier way to do this, but I actually hand sewed the entire hood to the base of the cowl. That's just kind of how I figured that I was going to do it. So, yeah. I know, it's a little weird, but yeah, so just pin along the bottom. I tried to keep it somewhere around the middle, probably around here. That way you could actually machine sew the seam and make sure it's nice and flat and even. But then that way it's concealed along the back, so you don't really see it if the hand sewing is sloppy like mine is. Yeah, so just get that sewn and then we'll see how it looks. Now before I step off camera and do a bunch of hand sewing, I figured I'd go over the next little piece of sewing machine part, if you're going to be doing it with a sewing machine anyway, which is the like side back piece. Now I do it a weird way, like I mentioned before, because this whole piece is pretty much worn with tape, at least the back panel part of it. Now I've seen a lot of other cosplayers do it where this piece and the hood piece are one part of it, and then there's a panel of fabric that is the same width around their entire torso, like their waist, and it just kind of wraps around and just sits there. So that might work for you. That might be an easier way, because then you don't have to worry about the tape, other than maybe taping it so it doesn't twist around and the seams don't show. But I guess I'll show you the way I did it, since that's kind of the whole point. So what I did, trying to show, I look kind of like Joker or something, I don't know. I measured kind of under about like halfway, like between the inside and the outside edge, so like about here or so, and I measured to where my spine is, because my spine is basically the center of my back. So for me that's, I guess, 11.5 inches or so. So that's how long of a piece I'm gonna make, and I'm gonna cut out 4 pieces that are that long, and then I just kind of eyeball about how long I want it to be, or tall, I guess. I don't know, 5 inches. Keeping in mind I do have a short torso, so looking in the mirror, 5 inches actually looks huge. So, but somewhere between 4 and 5 inches. So here are my 2 side back pieces, and what I'm going to do is sew around on both of them, both of the long edges and one of the small edges. So then when I flip it inside out, I have one edge I can close up by hand, and then that allows me to adjust it if it's too long. And in this case, because the cowl shape's a little different, I might be able to do something different with how I attach it, but I guess we'll find out after. I'd hoped that I would do it the same way, but I mean, I don't know, it's all kind of test and trial, even though I've done this before. So yeah, we'll come back and see what happens when we finish that.